All right, let's talk about Christianity. Statistically speaking, a decent chunk of you identify with it. A third of the planet, actually roughly 2.38 billion people. That's a lot of caroling, and while Christianity is largely centered in Europe, the Americas, Oceania and parts of Africa, it's not exactly a free-for-all everywhere. See, some countries aren't exactly keen on the whole love thy neighbor thing. In fact, they make it incredibly difficult, even dangerous, to be a Christian within their borders. So today we're diving headfirst into a topic that might surprise you: the top 10 countries where being Christian in 2024 is about as easy as finding a parking spot in Manhattan on Christmas Eve. But first, if you're enjoying this descent into the geopolitical hellscape that is religious persecution, do subscribe to the channel, it really helps. And by helps, I mean it briefly distracts us from the existential dread. Let's begin, shall we? Kicking off our list with a familiar face on the "this guy again" wall of authoritarian regimes, North Korea. Now, the DPRK might technically guarantee religious freedom in its constitution, but in practice, well, it's more like religious imprisonment. See, the only belief system Kim Jong-un really vibes with is the one where he's the supreme leader and everyone else is a supporting character in his very own Truman Show. Christianity, with its whole worshipping someone else thing, not exactly on brand. Possessing a Bible, grounds for imprisonment, or worse, public displays of faith. Let's just say the only thing they encourage you to publicly display is your undying devotion to the dear leader. It's estimated that tens of thousands of Christians are currently imprisoned in North Korea, often subjected to forced labor, torture, and you guessed it, absolutely no eggnog come December. Next up, we have Afghanistan, a country where the Taliban's interpretation of Islam has made being Christian about as safe as a snowball in a sauna. Since their takeover in 2021, the Taliban have been very clear: convert to Islam or face the consequences. And those consequences aren't exactly winning a lifetime supply of raisins. We're talking persecution, violence, and the ever-present threat of death. Churches have been destroyed, converted into mosques, or just straight up abandoned. Those who haven't fled the country are forced to practice their faith in secret, often risking everything to do so. It's a bleak reality for Afghan Christians and a stark reminder that religious freedom is a privilege many are tragically denied. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading to Somalia, a country where the only thing more dangerous than the political instability is openly identifying as Christian. Al-Shabaab, the militant Islamist group that controls large swathes of the country, has a strict convert or die policy that would make even the most hardcore televangelist blush. Public displays of faith? Forget it. Owning a Bible? You're better off owning a pet crocodile, honestly. At least that might offer some protection. Christians in Somalia live in a constant state of fear, forced to practice their faith underground and pray that their neighbors don't turn them in. It's a truly heartbreaking situation and a stark reminder of the very real dangers faced by religious minorities in many parts of the world. Next on our list is Iran, a country where the government's relationship with Christianity is about as warm and fuzzy as a cactus hug. While the Iranian constitution technically allows for Christian citizens, it also explicitly forbids them from, actually trying to convert anyone. Proselytizing, grounds for imprisonment, distributing religious materials, straight to jail. You can practically hear the clang of the cell door just thinking about it. The government keeps a tight leash on churches, often raiding services and arresting worshippers. It's a classic case of do as we say, not as we do, with the Iranian government seemingly more interested in controlling faith than protecting it. Buckle up, folks, because our next stop is Eritrea, a country often dubbed the North Korea of Africa. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. President Isaias Afwerki, who's been in power since 1993, yeah, that's not a typo. He's been in power for over 30 years, has a serious case of my way or the highway when it comes to religion. Only 4 religious groups are officially recognized in Eritrea, and surprise, surprise, Christianity isn't one of them. This means that Christians are often subject to arbitrary arrest, detention and torture, with many churches being shut down or converted into, you guessed it, more prisons. It's a grim picture, and one that highlights the urgent need for greater religious freedom in Eritrea. Next up, we're navigating the turbulent waters of Libya, a country where the political landscape is about as stable as a Jenga tower built on a roller coaster. Since the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has been plagued by violence, instability, and a whole lot of factions vying for power. In this chaotic environment, Christians have become easy targets, often facing discrimination, violence, and even kidnapping. Churches have been attacked, and many Christians have been forced to flee their homes in search of safety. It's a stark reminder that when a country descends into chaos, it's often the most vulnerable who suffer the most. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're venturing into the complex world of Pakistan, a country where blasphemy laws cast a long shadow over the lives of religious minorities, particularly Christians. In Pakistan, even the slightest perceived insult to Islam can land you in hot water. We're talking life in prison or even the death penalty kind of hot water. These laws are often misused to target Christians, sometimes based on flimsy or fabricated evidence. The result? A climate of fear and self-censorship where Christians are constantly looking over their shoulder, afraid to speak out or even practice their faith openly. Fasten your seatbelts because we're landing in Yemen, a country ravaged by a brutal civil war that's left millions displaced and desperate for aid. In the midst of this humanitarian catastrophe, Christians find themselves caught in the crossfire, targeted by both sides of the conflict. The Houthi rebels, who control much of the country, view Christians with suspicion, often accusing them of being spies or collaborators with the enemy. This has led to abductions, forced disappearances, and even killings. It's a truly harrowing situation, and one that underscores the devastating impact of conflict on religious freedom. Get ready to cover up because we're heading to Saudi Arabia, a country where public displays of any religion other than Islam are about as welcome as a vegan at a barbecue festival. Saudi Arabia adheres to a strict interpretation of Islamic law, which means that churches banned public worship. Don't even think about it. Even possessing a Bible can land you in serious trouble with the religious police. Christians in Saudi Arabia are forced to practice their faith in secret, often risking arrest and deportation if caught. It's a stark reminder that religious freedom is not a universal right, and that in some parts of the world, even the most basic act of faith can be seen as a subversive act. Last, but certainly not least, we arrive in the Maldives, a picture-perfect paradise that might just be the most beautiful place on earth to get arrested for being Christian. You see, the Maldives might be known for its pristine beaches and luxurious resorts, but beneath the surface lies a strict adherence to Sunni Islam, and a government that's not exactly keen on religious diversity, converting from Islam to Christianity, illegal, possessing Christian materials, confiscated, sharing your faith with others. You're better off swimming with sharks, honestly. At least they might just leave you alone. It's a sobering reminder that even in the most idyllic of settings, religious freedom can be a fragile and easily threatened thing. So, there you have it, a whirlwind tour of 10 countries where being Christian in 2024 is less about peace on earth and more about persecution on earth. It's a sobering reminder that for millions around the world, religious freedom isn't a guarantee. It's a privilege, and one that's often denied in the most brutal and unjust ways. As we enjoy our own religious freedoms, let's not forget those who are persecuted for theirs, because, ultimately, the fight for religious freedom is a fight for all freedoms, a fight for the right to believe, to think, and to live according to one's own conscience without fear or reprisal.